Welcome to the Dawn Jarvis Show with Dawn Jarvis, the diverse nurse. And in this podcast, we will be talking about healthcare, self-care, diversity, careers, and well-being from a black woman's perspective. We're really happy that you're here. So if you're ready, let's get on with the show.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dawn Jarvis Show. I'm Dawn Jarvis, the diverse nurse. And in this podcast, I talk to and about busy leaders, professionals, and business owners who are part of my diverse nurse network, learning about who they are, what they do, and why they do it, and how they prioritize their own health and well-being and stay focused, positive, and productive. In today's episode, I'm going to be speaking to healthy relationships coach and recovering people pleaser, Helen Snape, about how you can tell if you're a people pleaser, the impact it has on your own life and those you care about, and what recovery looks like, and how you can ditch people pleasing for good. I know Helen, and we're in a mastermind together. We've been to a couple of courses together. We're on LinkedIn. We're connected on LinkedIn and we've chatted, and I'm really looking forward to this. Hi, Helen. How are you doing?
Hi, Dawn. I'm really well, and I'm very excited to be on your podcast show. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, my darling. So a couple of questions to start off with. Healthy relationships coach. What's that and what's that about? And then next, sort of like, how did you get to become one, and how did you get to where you are today?
Oh, yes. So healthy relationships coach for me, it is about supporting people to have healthy and rewarding relationships. You know, I'm not a dating coach. I'm not going to tell you like what to go out there and say to go and land your next date. What I will help you with is building boundaries, communicating, speaking up for yourself and your needs, developing a healthy self-esteem, and bringing people into your life that will create healthy relationships for you. Because I truly believe that healthy relationships are key to our happiness. And yet, so many of us, we have experiences of lots of unhealthy relationships. And I believe we can learn how to do healthy relationships. I've certainly kind of been on that journey. I'm still on that journey. And that's, so we can certainly do that.
That's brilliant. It sounds really good. I think, who doesn't want to have healthy relationships? And there are other people that do dating, that are dating coaches. I think I've had one on the show actually, John Kenny. So so we've got that covered, Helen. So we're going to talk about your relationships that you have in your everyday life with your family, people you work with, people you see in the shop, that sort of thing, aren't we? Sort of like, and I think it's so important, isn't it? Sort of like, because we no man is an island, or no woman's an island, are they? So you are defined by your relationships. I mean, one coach told me that you're the amalgamation of the 5 people closest to you, or something like that.
It really does affect every area of your life. From not only just in your personal relationships and your family, but at work as well. How much of your happiness and your success at work is determined by your relationships with other people. It's massive. It's absolutely massive.
It is huge. So how did you become a healthy relationships coach?
I became a healthy relationships coach a few years ago, after a long career in human resources and training, where I was doing some coaching, and that was probably my favorite element of the job anyway. And a few people had suggested to me becoming a coach, and I ignored them for a while because I was like, no, I am doing my human resources career. Thank you very much. But I realized eventually that, coaching was much more my thing. And so I left my job to become, an HR consultant and do some career coaching, except that I realized that wasn't really what I was so excited about. And what I really, really wanted to do was help other women who are stuck in this people-pleasing pattern of behavior that I was so stuck in 6 years ago, because I know how much it sucks. And I know how empty it feels, and how it just keeps you small and in unhealthy relationships, and I could go on. But when we can break free of these patterns, it just your life blossoms.
So it's really interesting, because I don't think you're alone in having been a people pleaser and on that journey to recovery. I probably would say I'm a people pleaser. I want everyone to be happy, and I want everyone to like me. Isn't that normal, Helen? So what is a people pleaser? What are the signs that you are a people pleaser?
And I suppose just a kind of a caveat on, when I talk about people pleasers, I don't want people to get hung up on the label. Right? I talk about people pleasers because most people recognize the term. But I do believe, like, people pleasing is a pattern. It's a pattern of emotions, thoughts, and behaviors that gets really ingrained in us, but it's not really who we are. So, like, just, if anyone's listening and they're thinking, oh no, it's me, then like, don't worry, it's not really you. It's just it's a pattern that we've got into. So signs that you might be people pleasing. Well, the obvious one is that you say yes to everything. Like, I would say yes to everything. Like, even when a checkout assistant in the shop would offer me an email receipt, I would say yes to that, even though I did not want to give them my email address. I didn't want to have that awkwardness and upset the cashier. That's like, oh my God. So that's an obvious one. There's also avoiding conflict at all costs. We'll either distract from it, or we'll just find something else to do, or we'll agree with somebody when we don't really agree with them. We get caught up into doing things that we don't really want to do because we can't say no. So we end up agreeing to do something, and then being annoyed with ourselves for agreeing, and then resenting the other person, and then either having to go through and do it, or trying to backtrack out of it. And we'll also pretend that everything is fine when it isn't. Like, oh yeah, everything's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's all good. Don't believe it.
No, I know. It's a really interesting one, isn't it? It's sort of like, I think about the example that you were using about the cashier and the email receipt, and it's easier sometimes to say yes than it is to say no, because then there's a whole thing, isn't there? Why are you saying no? And this is just a simple request. But it's around assertiveness, isn't it? And also that agreeing with somebody even though you don't agree. And it's a bit of that assertiveness and being very clear. But I was really interested in what you were saying about the awkwardness of it all is a thing that we're trying to avoid, isn't it, really? Because it's almost not usual to say, well, actually, I don't agree. So where'd you go? When you say that, it's just like, okay. And you could go to a really conversation. So sometimes I think it's time, isn't it? So I disagree with lots of people about lots of things, but sometimes I think, oh, do you know what? I'm just not going there today, but maybe another day, but I think it's also being happy in yourself with how you make the yes or no decision, isn't it? I don't know. What do you think, Helen?
I think it's about your motivation in whether you perhaps keep quiet or you say something. Am I perhaps not engaging in this conversation just because I don't want to waste my time and energy talking about something that perhaps I'm not really interested in, it doesn't really bother me that much? Or am I keeping quiet because I don't want to upset the other person and I don't want them to dislike me, or I don't want to create a rift in the relationship? Am I trying to kind of manage our interaction, manage their feelings in some way.
Yeah. And that's really interesting. That's really interesting about managing people's feelings and the impact, I guess, that has. So I guess you could have, you could not disagree with something quite fundamental, and the person, because you didn't disagree with them, they'll think, well, they agreed because you didn't disagree, and that can cause confusion later, like, well, you never said. And
yeah,
and I've had that said to me, well, you never said. I was thinking, oh, and but it's almost, you also have to be, I think if it's fundamental, you have to be quite clear about what your feelings, your passions, or around. But there's a two-way thing, isn't there? Because people say things to you, don't they, expecting agreement, but if they don't get the agreement, who's responsible for the uncomfortableness? And it's not you personally, isn't it? But you might feel a way about it, you might feel uncomfortable, and as you said, be upset that you don't want to upset people. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we can get really caught up in not wanting to upset other people. I mean, that is one of the key things for somebody that's stuck in kind of people pleasing patterns. Like, we don't want to upset anyone, we don't want to offend anyone. That's just like the worst thing in the world. Except that it really isn't. Because you can be the nicest person in the world, there's going to be some people out there who are still going to find you offensive and not like you.
yeah so, true.
Just it's not our responsibility to take care of other people's emotions. I really did think it was my responsibility for so many years, because that's just how I was brought up, and that's what I thought was true. And I've had to really unlearn that. Now it doesn't give me then an excuse to be obnoxious.
No, of course not.
and the people that I work with, I'm like, you're never going to be that obnoxious, arrogant person anyway, because of where you're starting from. Like, you obviously care about other people. It's just, yes, we're responsible for what we say and what we do, but we can't be responsible for how somebody else reacts to that or how they feel about it.
No, that's true. It's about, I guess, you're responsible for not being arrogant or imposing yourself on people, but you're not responsible for how people might feel about you for saying your truth, are you, really? And that's and there has to be a level of confidence to sort of like know that and be comfortable with that. And I think is that part of your work, Helen?
It is, yes. So part of the recovery journey is about becoming more comfortable with difficult feelings, the feelings that we don't want to have.
yeah
and a lot of it is about that, well, if I don't say yes to this person, I'm going to feel really guilty, and that is a big obstacle. And it's learning that actually maybe that guilt isn't real guilt. Like, maybe you haven't actually done anything wrong.
Absolutely.
And so it's then about how can I live with that emotion? How can I manage it? How can I be kind to myself about it, rather than giving into it and being like, oh, well, I must agree with them because then I won't feel guilty anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. So I'm assuming that you are a people pleaser in recovery. So what does that look like for you, and what could that look like for people that you work with?
Yeah, so people pleaser in recovery, it's about valuing your own peace and serenity above everything else. It's about not needing to be needed in a relationship. So you can go into a relationship and there is more of a balance, there's give and take, and you show up as equal whole people. There's not this kind of, I need you to be doing this and I need to be giving to you all the time. It's much more balanced. And there's also an ability to let go of relationships that are really unhealthy, because again, you value your peace above all else, and also you develop a supportive network of friends and things that you enjoy, so that, you know, if you need to leave a relationship, you haven't just got a vacuum, you've got other things in your life.
Yeah, that sounds really good, actually, because I know you're not a dating coach, but I think that is really relevant, isn't it, for sort of like you know, love relationships, and that it you know, you can't be everything for everyone, because at some point you're gonna let them down, and or they're not gonna give you all that you need, and there's different things for different needs, isn't there? Different people, different kinds of relationships that make up all the relationships in your life. So I think, you know, I think that's really, really good. And so, and how do you get there? So what are the keys to getting to being in that, which sounds like a wonderful state? And I know it's a continual journey. I don't think you get there, yeah, you've arrived. I'm arrived. That's not what happens. I'm free.
Yeah.
You know, but
get
you know,
a halo. It's great.
But you know,
it's recovering from people pleasing is definitely a journey. I think I'll probably be on it the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But for me, there are four key components. The first one is really getting to know yourself. You know, like so many people, you know, I'll talk to them, and it's even the simplest things about like, oh, well, you know, where would you like to go out for dinner tonight? And the answer is, oh, I don't know, you decide. And it's because, you know, we're not giving any attention to ourselves. We're always focused on other people. And so we need to learn to bring that attention back to ourselves and learn, actually, what is important to me? What is it that I love? What is it that I enjoy? What is it that really pisses me off? And start to build this relationship with ourselves.
Brilliant.
So that is the first key. The second thing is mind-body connection, because I think we can be so good at ignoring how we feel. Again, you know, because we've been prioritizing how other people feel, is we've learnt to ignore or dismiss or just trivialize how we feel. And so it's learning to reconnect with the body, because of course, you know, our feelings are in our bodies, so we can have the head and the heart connected. And then our feelings can actually tell us, for example, you know, when one of our boundaries has been crossed. Because otherwise, how do we know if we're completely out of touch with ourselves?
Yeah.
How can we possibly know, like, when we might need to feel angry about something or you know, defend ourselves? Yeah. So there's a lot about reconnecting the head and the heart. There's learning to love ourselves. And that was like, for me, that was the elephant in the room, because I would say, you know, I'm a very caring person, and I really loved other people. I didn't know how to love myself. And I thought maybe somehow I could get away with that in life, or just, you know, somehow it would figure itself out. And it's been a real journey for me to learn, actually, how does that work? Because it has transformed my relationships with other people. Definitely. So learning to love ourselves is really key. And you know, and some of that is about connecting with that inner child. Which is beautiful. And learning to look after them. And then finally is boundaries. Just everything about boundaries. When I came out of an unhealthy relationship and I started learning about boundaries, I was just like, what is this magic of which I never knew? everything about them. Boundaries are simply, they teach other people what's okay for you and what isn't okay for you. And typically most people pleasers will have weak or no boundaries. I know I certainly didn't. And so learning about, how do I protect my own time and my own energy, and emotional boundaries, mental boundaries, they're helpful in every area of your life, in your relationships, at home and at work. And yeah, those 4 things.
That sounds amazing. So it's so holistic, isn't it? So, it sort of covers everything, doesn't it? Loving yourself, know that inner child, the boundaries with other people. I really love all that. I really love all of that. And I'm assuming, because why wouldn't I, that you are embodying that, so those 4 keys to breaking free of people pleasing patterns for good. And have you got a gift that for our audience who might be interested in learning more about what you're talking about?
Oh, yes. I would love for people to be able to kind of start their own journey. And so what they can do is download my book, Building Healthy Boundaries, an Overgiver's Guide on when to say yes and how to say no in relationships, from my website, which is helensnape.com. And in that book, they'll discover a bit of my own journey in learning all about boundaries and how awful it was that I didn't have any. But it will also take them on the step-by-step process that I went through to identifying what my boundaries were and communicating them with other people. And so it kind of gives you a roadmap to be able to do that for yourself.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'll be downloading that. So building healthy boundaries is something I think we can all do. And I don't think you can do enough of that. And I think even thinking about it and sort of like in the context of your relationships, and sort of, I know it's something I've been doing quite recently, sort of like thinking about, what are those relationships I have? How important are they to me? What is really, really good about them? What are some of the things that I can change? And what is that about? What do I want to do? I really like what you said about, what do I want for dinner? Or, and I know when I've said that, I genuinely don't mind. But if I did mind, what would I have? It's sort of like, if you did know what you wanted for dinner, what would you have? It's sort of like one of those coaching questions, isn't it? I don't know, but what if you did know? So it's sort of thing that you sort of like do need to sort of like think about, and thinking about what meals you like, what television you want to watch, what theatre show you want to go to, how do you want to spend your time, if it's up to you, and what gives you joy is really, really important. Now, I always ask people about a book that has helped them or that they would recommend. What's your book, Helen?
A book I would recommend is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers.
And why do you recommend that? Right, it's a very famous book. I think I've had a copy of it, but I think I've had a copy of most books actually, because I love books. We'll definitely put a link to it in the show notes, but it's a book that a lot of people have. So why is that the book that you recommend, and why is it important to you?
This book changed my life. Ooh. It was recommended to me by a fellow coach who she basically said, Helen, you need to read this book. And it was after I read that book that I made the decision to leave my career in human resources, pursue working as a coach full time and getting my training as a coach. It literally made me feel the fear and do it anyway.
The title is fantastic. Helen, you and I have talked about titles and things for and sort of like, and feel the fear and do it anyway. It is what it says on the tin, isn't it? And I think it's a mantra you know, it has become that sort of like mantra, isn't it? Even, you know, you don't, not that you do need to read the book, but you know, you almost, it's telling you what it's about. It's like, you know, confront, you know, what are you scared of? Why are you not doing the thing that you want to do? You know, and I think also it sort of, it speaks to the nature of being, life is scary, isn't it, to do those things that you want to do. Like, you know, you talked about giving up your career, you know, and, you know, trying something that you really wanted to do, and but there's, you know, and that's a good thing, isn't it, because you're moving forward, but there is fear about it. There's like the fear about money, there's fear about, will I be successful, am I good, will anybody want to be coached by me, you know, those sort of, you know, and I think you sort of, as particularly, I think, sort of like moving from, you know, a corporate job, you know, I did, you did, you know, lots of people we both know have done this journey, and probably lots of people listening and watching this have done that journey. And it's sort of like, it doesn't go, oh yeah, I'm gonna leave, it's fine, you know. It's sort of like there's a lot of like, you know, stark searching of the soul before that happens. But I think that's normal, isn't it, really, because it
is, and that book really gets to the root of it. You know, I mean, I've read a lot of self-help books, and this is one that I feel like I could come back to time and time again, or even just like dip into one chapter again and get a lot of value out of it. Yeah. Yes, read it.
We'll put a link in the show notes for those who haven't read it. I would recommend it too, because I think I'm a great component. I'm just seeing a lead that's in my way. Hang on a sec. So I'll just move that lead. But I'm a great component that, you know, that I love books, and I love the support that books can give you, and you don't necessarily have to read all of them, do you? And like, that's a fantastic title even to even get you thinking, isn't it? And there's lots of ways of consuming books. You can listen to books and you can look at books, can't you? And there's all sorts of different ways, but even to have the conversation about the book is a really good thing. Now, what you're talking about, having healthy relationships. I'm loving that healthy was in the title, and that you're a healthy relationships coach. And, you know, I'm a nurse, and I talk, you know, this podcast is nominally about health and well-being, and leaders and professionals, and how they keep themselves focused and positive, and how they maintain their own health and well-being. I think that the subject matter about healthy relationships and the holistic nature of that is a lot about well-being. Like, you know, let's just say that. And you're embodying, you're embodying all of that. But how, I have to ask the question, because I ask everyone the question, you know, how do you do it for yourself? How do you practice what you preach? How do you embody it, you know, well-being?
Yeah. My own health and well-being is, well, it's my priority now. You know, as a recovering people pleaser, it really is about learning to put yourself first, you know, so that you can then, you know, do your work or look after other people from a place of being filled up first. And so I guess like the ways that I do that practically, all sorts of things. So I love to meditate, because I find it's very grounding. It connects me to myself, to my higher power, to the earth, and my inner child. It's like a super highway for all those things. And it's also very good practice, mental practice for stepping back from my own thoughts and feelings, you know, and kind of being the observer of those, and holding space for them, and not kind of getting just all wrapped up in them, you know, because, you know, it's said that we have, what is it, like 90,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are negative, and most of them we repeat day after day. So something like meditation is like, it actually helps you. It's like mental muscles, you know, for managing that. So that's really important. Practicing setting boundaries. So, you know, doing the inner work to identify actually, you know, what is it that I need to protect my own time and energy. But then, like, maybe more practical things is just, you know, I drink a lot of water. I sleep a lot.
I'm loving that.
Prioritizing my sleep. and just finding ways that my body likes to move, because I find that if I don't give my body movement, then I have less energy and less motivation. And for me, it's not really about exercising, it is about movement. So, that might be going for a walk, or it might be doing some Pilates, or it might be madly dancing to YouTube videos, which is kind of what I do a lot. But yeah, it varies just depending on my mood.
I need to say that I love the way and prioritizing the way I move. I love that. I'm going to keep that. No, prioritize the way you move, because that does exercise. It almost is like a swear word, isn't it? Exercise. I must exercise. Not just like, that's quite hard, doesn't it? Prioritizing the way I move just feels so mellow and so it's lovely. So yes, I'm going to keep that one. I like that one a lot, Helen, and thank you for those tips. So how can people stay in contact with you, Helen, hear more about your work and what you're up to? What's the best way to keep in contact with you?
Yeah, people can find me all over social media, but the easiest way to contact me is via my website, which is helensnape.com.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we're coming to the end of the show, and how I end this with all my guests is there some tip or advice, and it could be related to what we're talking about, but it doesn't have to be, that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Oh, yeah. So my kind of tip for getting unstuck out of people-pleasing patterns is to slow down and pause. So it's just introducing that gap between somebody perhaps asking you to do something and the yes coming out of your mouth. Just see if next time you can slow yourself down, breathe, pause, and it gives you time to think about how you want to answer, or to introduce a delay and say, actually, I'll get back to you. Yeah, that's my tip.
I like that one. Pause, and that gives you time to think, and it just slows everything down. Because I know that happens to me. You sort of think, what's that? Say yes, okay. And then, that sort of like, and then you think, oh, I should have given myself a bit more time around that. So I really like that. So thank you so much, Helen. It's been an absolute delight to talk to you again today and to share your story and your tips with the audience. And thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Thank you, Dawn.
You're welcome. That's it for Dawn Jarvis show today, which is brought to you by dawnjarvis.com and the Diverse Nurse Network. Take care, everybody, and hopefully we'll speak again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Dawn Jarvis Show. If you enjoyed this episode, there are 2 things you can do. Number 1, leave Dawn a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean so much to her if you took a moment out of your time to post your thoughts on the show. It will help Dawn reach so many more people and help them with their well-being. Number 2, subscribe to Dawn's email list, the Diverse Nurse Digest, using the link in the show notes. Until the next time, thank you and goodbye.